Past, is the multiple based off of past year, or is it the forecast slash adjusted?
No, it would be past years. Sometimes they'll take an average of the past 3 years, whatever. But because you made sometimes your gross revenues will accounting firm will include one-time special projects. So maybe your revenues are $100,000 more this year than they were last year. And if it's a recurring project, then that's fine. But if it's a special project, then that's all got to be averaged in, and that's what we do.
And how do you? There's a lot of questions around worry. It's interesting because for those that might be thinking about an acquisition, they're thinking about, well, how do we de-risk this acquisition if we buy and 50% of the clients just leave. So I'm curious from that angle, when you're looking at buying a firm, purchasing a firm, how do you build in some sort of risk analysis, risk profile? So if the client attrition is higher, you're not, you've kind of built that into the acquisition price, or is that kind of inherent in the multiple anyways?
Well, it's all client retention is partially a matter of packaging. Clients, there are what we call changes in front of the door and changes behind the door. If David, you have a firm and you merge with a larger firm, if you're on say you're using UltraTax and the larger firm is using ProSystem FX for your tax software. See, if it doesn't matter to the client what software platform you're on. He doesn't see that. All he knows is he wants to get his 1040. That's a change behind the door. But all of a sudden, if one of your loyal clients who's been coming to you for 10 years and you've been doing his 1040 and you've been billing him for $600, all of a sudden after you merge, he gets a bill for $850. See, he's going to feel that. That's a change in front of the door. So you've got to package it correctly. Never position it. Change is a dirty word to clients. People choose accountants much the same way. I know this is going to sound sort of non-connected. People choose their accountants much like they choose their dentists. All right, usually referral, experience. If you've been going to a dentist for 20 years and all of a sudden you walk into his office and there's somebody else in his chair, chances are you have no idea about his or her competency level. You're not going to let them work on you. That's the same thing with an accounting firm. Clients don't like change. So that's why that all-important transition handoff is so critical. For the first couple of years, they see you, you send out a letter, and never position it as the loss of David Cristello. Position it as the gain of the successor firm. This way, if the clients get a letter saying I've decided to merge, they see you're still there, their fees aren't going to go up, your location is basically the same. Chances are that client is going to be retained. And if you lose them, then that's shame on you.
And that transition period seems so critical for the retention of those clients. And let's say the payout period is over a couple years. At what point, you introduce, hey, you're gaining, and the way we've seen it is, hey, now that we've merged with this firm or we've been acquired with this firm, you get to gain all these other resources that they might have. That we've seen that come up a lot. And at what point does that owner or that typical contact point for that client then completely transition away? Is it 18 months, 24, 36 months after that initial merger, and they say, hey, I want to introduce you to Jim. Jim and I have been working together a lot on your file. He knows your case. And let's schedule a lunch, a meeting, an afternoon to connect so we can all talk together. I mean, how does that handoff look kind of tactically, or what are some examples of making that transition point happen?
Usually, and that's a great question. Usually what will happen is if you go for a client visit or a client comes to see you, you always should have the successor firm's partner with you. So the client sees both of you at the same time. Maybe that's for the first year. Second year, you may do that again. Third year, that's sort of the best time to hand it off. Depending on your transition, when you're going to transition out, you should always bring that person with you. There was a great example, and if I could just a great anecdote. We had merged a firm in New York State, and it was the owner was going out in about 3 years. So they had merged, and then a client called. He called the former owner, and he says, Bob, he goes, you're not going to believe this, but I just got the same letter we got 6 years ago from the IRS. And the owner's name was Bob. He says, yes, I remember that. That was a nightmare for us to deal with. But you know something? There's a lot of tax laws that have changed since then. Our new partner is an expert in this field. 2 heads are better than 1. I'll discuss with him and get back to you. So instead of Bob getting back to him, the new partner calls the client, gives him the solution, and that was so critical in that transition. So now the client has become accustomed to the new partner.
Yeah, and just to give context, I mean, I appreciate that the story, because then it really shows the concrete example of how this. So at Transition Advisors, I mean, you focus primarily or entirely on helping accounting firm owners sell or acquire, just as a frame of reference. So how many do you, as an organization, as a company, how many do you help facilitate, manage in a given year?
In our career, we've merged about 850 to 875 accounting firms. So we have some experience in this. During the year, I would say we touch about 70 deals. Now, that doesn't mean we complete all of them. People who come to us, for whatever reason, they may decide not to merge. They may find a firm on their own. But we touch about 70, 75 deals in any given year. We also, I just should preface this, we also have a large consulting division where we do things like partnership agreements, and that sometimes, or conduct firm retreats, and that sometimes gives us sort of an entree into a relationship with the firm who later may down the road decide to merge. So I would say a good estimate is about 70 to 80 deals a year.